Welcome, everybody. It's so good of you to join us this evening. We've got a lot to talk about, and I'd like to get through the talk so that we can listen. But I think it's very important that you all hear where we are to date, because it's taken us a long time to get here. 2 years has this project been in the making. So good evening. My name is Vicki Walker, and I'm the director of the Oregon Department of State Lands. For many years, the Elliott State Forest has been at the center of what I would characterize as passionate conversations. The Elliott is treasured by Oregonians for many different reasons. Our great challenge has been finding a future for the Elliott that reflects those diverse perspectives and priorities. From those very passionate conversations, a path forward has, however, emerged. First, with the Land Board's 2017 decision to keep the Elliott publicly owned, and next with the creation of the Land Board's vision for the Elliott. The board's vision reflects the many different values Oregonians hold for the Elliott, and it reflects the desire for a public forest that has completed its contribution to funding our schools, but will continue to contribute to conservation, recreation, education, and Oregon economies. Finally, the Land Board set us on the path that led to tonight with their direction in December of 2018, and you can see that on the screen now, to explore the Elliott as a research forest with Oregon State University. So for more than 2 years, as I said, DSL and OSU, guided by many, because we can't do this alone, have explored the research forest idea. In 2019, we focused on the hard work of determining whether a research forest was even possible. Was there agreement at a high level on the big picture pieces? Could a research forest achieve the Land Board's vision? And could a research forest meet OSU's scientific needs? And maybe even more importantly, would our plan be well received by the public? Oregon State University established an exploratory committee within its College of Forestry to assess research forest feasibility. DSL likewise convened an advisory committee of stakeholders with different perspectives to provide insight on elements of a potential research forest. Together and separately, DSL and OSU have talked to many hundreds of Oregonians about this research forest idea. We've done that through open houses, listening sessions, and other events. In 2020, with direction from the Land Board to bring forward a proposal by the end of the year, work focused on finalizing details for Land Board consideration. What OSU will present tonight and what is available on the Elliott State Research Forest proposal website are draft elements of a research forest proposal. And draft means it is not yet final, which is why your participation this evening is especially important. I fully expect there will be additions and changes to these draft elements as OSU works to finalize a proposal for the Land Board's consideration on December 8. While these elements are works in progress, they are also a good representation of where the proposal stands today, with just over a month before the Land Board meeting. It's important to note that December is not the end of the path. Should the Land Board support moving forward, more work and more discussion with stakeholders and the public will be needed in 2021 and beyond to successfully establish an Elliott State Research Forest. For example, details of decommissioning in progress. But the framework of what we have set out to do is in process, and we hope to present that to the Land Board on December 8 with agreement from stakeholders and the public. I want to thank you again for being here tonight. Your interest in the potential Elliott State Research Forest and the feedback that you have provided and will continue to provide is essential to the department and to the Oregon State University, and ultimately the Land Board in finding a future for our treasured forest. With that, it is my sincere pleasure to introduce Dean Tom DeLuca to present an overview of the research forest proposal. Tom came to us from Montana not too long ago, so he's done a yeoman's job of getting up to speed, and I really have valued what he's bringing to the table. So with that, Tom, you have the floor.
Great, thank you, Vicki. Thank you for a really nice introduction today too. And let me join Vicki in welcoming you all to this public forum today. We really appreciate your engagement in this process and what you're going to bring to the table. So let me just share my screen here. Okay, I assume everybody can see that clearly. Allie, can you just let me know if that's clear and I can be heard clearly?
Looks great, Tom.
Great, thanks so much. Okay, so I don't need to really repeat this. Vicki did a nice job of introducing it, but the OSU and DSL initiated this process that engaged tribes, local governments, other stakeholders to develop a proposal for a research forest that was consistent with the Land Board's vision. And the Land Board's vision was public ownership and access, with an emphasis on complete access, complete decoupling from the Common School Fund, a continued habitat conservation planning, and a working forest for local and community benefit. So why was OSU interested in this? Of course, we're very interested in those objectives, as well as, and importantly, conducting the science that needs to be done to advance forestry and advance a more sustainable forestry. So as part of the OSU proposal development process, and to meet the Land Board's vision, the Department of St. Lands Elliott State Research Forest Advisory Committee and the Oregon State University created guiding principles for following public values, forest governance, conservation, recreation, educational partnerships, local and regional economies, and tribal partnerships. We're developing a proposal for a research forest, which is an important piece to grasp because we aren't at this stage developing a management plan, but rather a research forest proposal. And a proposal that aligns with the State Land Board's vision and the guiding principles developed in 2019 through public input and with the help of the DSL Advisory Committee. The final proposal will include information on financials, the governance structure, and allows for public input and oversight that holds OSU accountable while allowing for the flexibility that we need to conduct research. Just a sample of OSU's commitments to public values. There's a list of these in the documentation that you would have read before attending tonight, or that you intend to read. But this gives you a sampling of our commitments to public values. Owning and managing an Elliott State Research Forest as a public forest and guaranteeing public access for recreation, education, foraging in ways consistent with the research objectives and activities. Full transparency and accountability in the management of the Elliott State Research Forest. Providing and enhancing educational access and use of the Elliott. Providing local jobs and other economic values associated with the activities of the Elliott State Research Forest. We commit to having a local working office with professional and technical staff and facilities for conducting research and demonstration activities on the forest. Conserving, enhancing, and sustaining high quality habitats for endangered species and other wildlife through the approaches such as putting over 60% of the forest into reserve, where habitat restoration and protection are the primary focus. And then finally, the continued involvement of the tribes is essential in the management of the Elliott State Research Forest. So in terms of a vision for the forest, we are seeking to create a state research forest that reflects on the immense capacity that exists for forests in Oregon and beyond to provide what we need to sustain ecosystems and economies. Over the last 8 months, if we have been taught anything over the last 8 months, it's that science is absolutely necessary for decision-making, effective decision-making. The Elliott State Research Forest is a pathway forward to seek better approaches to forest management that integrate multiple values: habitat, diversity, biodiversity, recreation, timber, water, and values them equally. We seek to shift the management approaches across the region to improve habitat and ultimately support the greatest diversity of species that perhaps ultimately allows for recovery of species and delisting of species. This is going to take time. It doesn't happen overnight, but is a process in which the science that is conducted on the Elliott will play such a significant role in achieving. Structurally complex, multi-cohort, multi-species, continuous cover forestry may be the most sustainable land management approach on Earth, and will be a part of what's conducted at the Elliott State Research Forest. Alternative forestry techniques that will be tested at Elliott will allow us to test and deliver a template from which land use sustainability will be judged throughout the region. Just some potential research possibilities that exist at the Elliott State Research Forest include, with the platform that I'm going to describe shortly, are studies on biodiversity and species at risk, such as marbled murrelet, spotted owl, and coho salmon. Studying carbon and climate change adaptation, studying natural and human-caused disturbances, such as the fires that we observed this summer. Geotechnical engineering, and especially in these steep landscapes that make up the Elliott State Research Forest, this is an unusual opportunity to understand mass wasting events as influenced by land use. Riparian and aquatic ecosystem studies, soil and water and air quality studies, socioeconomic aspects, recreation and forest policy, forest stand structure, early successional and old growth. These are just a few of the many possibilities for research that will exist on the Elliott State Research Forest. The design is based on a triad design wherein 34,000 acres of the Elliott State Research Forest will be put into reserve status, which is shown in green on the map here. There will be minimal conservation-oriented thinning in these restoration stands that had previously been in management to put those onto a trajectory to achieve that reserve quality condition. The 34,000 acres of conservation watershed will create the largest single conservation reserve in the coastal range, and will be just across the river from the Double Staircase wilderness, making a 66,000 acre reserve, and again, clearly the largest by far then between the two in the coastal range. The eastern half of the forest, 45,000 acres of the state forest, will be divided into sub-watersheds of varying between 400 to 1,200 acres in size. These sub-watersheds are assigned the different triad treatments that are described in the packet that you would have, or the materials that you would have read online, and that designate specific portions of stand-level research treatments, intensive, extensive, or reserve land management within each. When you look at a map like this, it's easy to look at these and think, oh my gosh, this whole green watershed is going to be under intensive management. But one has to keep in mind that that watershed's being assigned intensive management, but only a portion of it, is actually under intensive management, half to be exact. And of that, it's those treatments are applied over time. So it's not as though the whole watershed is under that full intensive management at once. It's a mosaic. So this is an example of one of the watersheds. This is watershed 111, which is under triad I, which is 40% reserve, 40% intensive, and 20% extensive management strategies. And they're distributed across the watershed. And so the red are the reserve, the green are intensive, the gold are extensive, and then the blue are the riparian conservation areas. And so again, you have to imagine, even with this map, that of this which is in intensive management, it's going in parcels of intensive management over time. The percentage of the Elliott State Research Forest that's allocated to these different treatments are described in this figure, with percentage on the vertical axis, and then reserve 66%, intensive about 17%, and extensive about 16%. Over time, this approach will create larger forests. So future age class distributions are given here, where this is current on the top graph. And then as we move down in time, we, in 50 years, 60,000 acres will be, or 73% of the forest will be older than 100 years. You can see the shifting of the age class to the right with time, with a portion remaining in intensive management, that 17% remaining in intensive management in the lower left-hand graph, portion of the graph at the bottom of the screen in light green. So some key takeaways are that the proposed Elliott State Research Forest framework allows for future generations to ask those questions about, in times of rapid change, what are the most effective means of ensuring and sustaining biodiversity, ecosystem processes, and ecosystem services, while still achieving a sustainable wood supply. The research design creates one of the largest reserve areas on the Oregon coast. It promotes a growth of early successional and older forests, allows public access and continued recreational uses, educational partnerships, and local economic benefit. And it advances science, and science that's desperately needed to understand how do we best manage our forest ecosystems throughout the region to achieve our fiber needs, our wood product needs, meeting those needs while minimizing impact to the environment and maximizing the benefit to the greatest diversity of species. And with that, I will end my comments and turn it back over to Ali, who will, I guess, manage the question and answer session. Thank you.